The death of a human child changed everything. In 2045, as the Hydrogen invasion force decimated Earth's defenses, this singular event transformed a one-sided slaughter into a war of attrition that would test both species' resolve. High Commander Yaris surveyed the ruins of New York City from his command post, atop what remained of the Empire State Building. Smoke billowed from countless fires across the metropolis, evidence of the Hydrogen's superior weaponry and ruthless tactics. Earth's militaries had crumbled in days, their most advanced technology rendered obsolete by the aliens' overwhelming firepower. Yet something was amiss. Despite the devastation, pockets of resistance persisted, particularly in the sprawling urban center. Yaris's mandibles clicked in frustration as he reviewed the latest casualty reports. His forces were still taking losses, far more than anticipated for this stage of the conquest. The source of his irritation soon became clear. A human named Johnny Cooper, a former U.S. Army Ranger, had organized a guerrilla resistance movement. Using intimate knowledge of the city's layout and unconventional warfare tactics, Cooper's band of survivors inflicted significant damage on Hydrogen patrols and supply lines. Yaris issued new orders, his voice cold and determined. Target civilian areas. Break their will to fight. The directive spread through the Hydrogen ranks. Soldiers who had been bred for combat against worthy opponents now found themselves raiding makeshift shelters and refugee camps. Many felt unease at these dishonorable tactics, but none dared question their commander's orders. During one such raid, chaos erupted in a crowded basement shelter. Frightened civilians scrambled for safety as Hydrogen troops stormed in, weapons raised. In the confusion, a young Hydrogen soldier, more accustomed to battlefield engagements than close-quarters combat, fired his weapon. A child fell, body limp, blood pooling on the concrete floor. The moment was captured by a survivor's communicator and broadcast across the remaining human networks. The image of the lifeless child, juxtaposed against the towering alien soldier, ignited a firestorm of outrage and grief among Earth's battered population. Johnny Cooper seized upon the tragedy, using it to galvanize support for his resistance movement. Survivors who had hidden in fear now emerged, joining his ranks or forming their own cells across the city. The resistance grew from a nuisance to a genuine threat. As news of the child's death spread among the Hydrogen, it sowed seeds of doubt. Soldiers questioned the honor in their actions, leading to hesitation and decreased combat efficiency. Yaris found himself grappling with the ethics of the invasion, his certainty in their cause wavering for the first time. Cooper recognized the shift in the invaders' momentum. He launched a series of coordinated attacks on Hydrogen strongholds throughout New York, reclaiming significant portions of the city. The success of his tactics inspired similar uprisings globally, marking a turning point in the war. Yaris, watching his once imminent victory slipping away, ordered his forces to regroup and reassess. This tactical pause gave the humans precious time to fortify their positions and prepare for a prolonged conflict. As the first week of the invasion drew to a close, the outcome that had seemed so certain now hung in the balance. The Hydrogen's technological superiority was matched against humanity's fierce determination and newfound unity. Both sides dug in, prepared for a grueling war of attrition that would determine the fate of Earth. The accidental killing of a child had awakened a sleeping giant. Humanity, with its back against the wall, was ready to fight with a ferocity that would shock their alien invaders. The real war was just beginning. The image of the fallen child reverberated through the Hydrogen ranks like a shockwave. Soldiers who had once moved with mechanical precision now hesitated, their movements tinged with uncertainty. In his command center, High Commander Yaris felt the shift acutely, his antennae twitching with agitation as reports of decreased combat effectiveness flooded in. "What is the meaning of this?" he snarled at his subordinates, mandibles clicking furiously. "We are warriors, not sniveling cubs." But his words rang hollow, even to his own ears. The unease spread like a virus through the Hydrogen forces, manifesting in missed shots, delayed responses, and a growing reluctance to engage civilian targets. Meanwhile, deep in the labyrinthine remains of New York's subway system, Johnny Cooper hunched over a makeshift planning table, surrounded by a motley crew of resistance fighters. Maps of the city, scrawled with annotations and attack plans, covered every surface. "They're slipping up," Cooper said, his voice low and intense. "We hit them here, here, and here." His finger jabbed at the map, indicating Hirogen strongholds. "Small teams, quick strikes. We're not trying to hold ground, just keep them off balance." A former NYPD officer nodded grimly. "I've got contacts in other boroughs. They're ready to move on your signal." Cooper's guerrilla tactics spread like wildfire across the city. Resistance cells popped up in abandoned warehouses, old parking garages, and the basements of bombed-out buildings. They struck without warning, using their intimate knowledge of the urban terrain to vanish before the Hirogen could mount an effective response. In a Hirogen research facility on the outskirts of the city, Dr. Elena Volkov worked feverishly, her mind racing as she pieced together the aliens' biological weaknesses. The Hirogen had captured her early in the invasion, fascinated by her expertise in xenobiology. Now, as her captor's attention wavered, she saw her chance. Under the cover of a power outage caused by a resistance attack, Volkov slipped away from the facility. She clutched a datapad to her chest, its contents potentially invaluable to the human resistance. Days later, exhausted and on the verge of collapse, Volkov stumbled into one of Cooper's hidden bases. "I have information," she gasped, holding out the datapad with trembling hands. "About the Hirogen, their biology, their tech. We can hurt them." Cooper's eyes widened as he scrolled through the data. "This changes everything," he murmured. With Volkov's insights, the Resistance's attacks grew more precise, more devastating. They developed makeshift EMP devices that could disable Hirogen energy shields. They crafted toxins that could penetrate the aliens' respiratory systems, leaving them gasping and vulnerable. High Commander Yaris paced his command center, rage building with each new report of human success. "Enough!" he roared, banging his hand onto a console. "We end this now. Prepare for a full assault on their main base." The Hirogen attack came with the fury of a tsunami. Plasma bolts rained down on the Resistance's primary stronghold, a converted sports arena in the heart of the city. Cooper and his fighters scrambled to evacuate, the air thick with smoke and the screams of the wounded. "Fall back!" Cooper shouted, helping an injured comrade to his feet. "To the tunnels! Move!" The Resistance suffered heavy losses that day. Valuable equipment was destroyed, supplies were left behind, and many good fighters fell. But even in retreat, Cooper's mind was working, formulating a plan. As the Hirogen forces pushed deeper into the city, flush with their recent victory, Cooper sprung his trap. Lured by false intelligence, a significant portion of the alien army found themselves in the sprawling subway system beneath Manhattan. Cooper's voice crackled over the Resistance's comm channels. "Now!" Explosions rocked the city. Carefully placed charges collapsed key sections of the subway, burying thousands of Hirogen soldiers under tons of concrete and steel. The victory was costly, but the impact was undeniable. The invaders' aura of invincibility had been shattered. News of the Resistance's success spread rapidly. In cities across the globe, humans who had cowered in fear now emerged, ready to fight. The Hirogen found themselves facing not just an army, but an entire species with its back against the wall. Yaris, his confidence shaken, ordered a change in strategy. "Fortify our positions," he commanded. "Turn this city into our fortress. We will grind them down with time." The urban landscape transformed. Hirogen strongholds rose from the ruins, overflowing with energy weapons and force fields. The aliens dug in, preparing for a long siege as they awaited reinforcements from their homeworld. But the human resistance was far from defeated. In hidden labs and makeshift workshops, Cooper and Volkov worked tirelessly to develop new weapons and tactics. They trained waves of new recruits, hardening them for the brutal realities of urban combat against a technologically superior foe. As the conflict entered its second month, the initial shock of the invasion had faded. In its place was a steely tenacity, a perseverance that burned in the eyes of every human fighter. The war for Earth had entered a new phase, and neither side was willing to concede defeat. Cooper stood atop a partially collapsed skyscraper, surveying the altered skyline of New York. Hydrogen fortifications loomed in the distance, a constant reminder of the challenge that lay ahead. But as he looked down at the bustling resistance base below, alive with activity and purpose, he felt a glimmer of hope. The fight for humanity's survival was not nearly finished, but for the first time since the invasion began, the outcome was no longer certain. The Hirogen had come expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant, and the true test of both species' commitment was only just beginning. As the conflict entered its third month, the streets of New York bore witness to a war of attrition. Crumbling skyscrapers cast long shadows over the scarred landscape, while the air crackled with the constant exchange of plasma fire and improvised explosives. In his fortified command center, Commander Yaris paced restlessly, his clawed feet leaving marks on the polished floor. "Status report," he barked at a nearby subordinate. The junior officer's mandibles quivered as he delivered the news. "Our forces continue to face heavy resistance, sir. The humans' guerrilla tactics are proving effective." Yaris's eyes narrowed. "And our casualty rates?" "Higher than anticipated, Commander. We've lost another 3 squads in the last week alone." Yaris hit his fist against a nearby console, the metal buckling under the force of the blow. He knew his superiors were growing impatient. The swift victory they had promised was slipping further from reach with each passing day. In that moment, Yaris made a decision that would alter the course of the war. "Prepare the orbital platforms," he ordered, his voice cold and resolute. "We will end this war from above." Miles away, in the depths of the Resistance's underground base, Johnny Cooper hunched over a flickering holographic display. The faint blue light illuminated the deep lines etched into his face, testament to months of sleepless nights and constant vigilance. A young Resistance fighter burst into the room out of breath. "Sir, we've intercepted a Hirogen transmission. They're planning something big." Cooper's eyes widened as he digested the information scrolling across the screen. "They're going to bomb us from orbit," he muttered, his mind racing. "If we don't stop this, it's all over." He turned to Dr. Elena Volkov, who stood nearby, her lab coat stained and tattered. "Elena, tell me you've got something we can use against their orbital platforms." The scientist nodded, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "I've developed a virus," she explained, holding up a small data chip. "It's designed to target their biomechanical systems. If we can upload it to their main platform, it should cascade through their entire network." Cooper's lips tightened into a grim smile. "Then that's exactly what we're going to do." Over the next 48 hours, the Resistance base became a flurry of activity. Cooper assembled a strike team of his most skilled operatives, each chosen for their unique abilities and unwavering nerves. They trained relentlessly, running simulations of the Hirogen shuttle bay and orbital platform based on intelligence gathered over months of covert operations. As the team made their final preparations, Cooper addressed the entire Resistance. His voice, transmitted through hidden speakers throughout the city, rang with quiet intensity. "Today we take the fight to them," he said. "While we strike at their heart in orbit, I need every one of you to hit them hard on the ground. Make them think we're throwing everything we have at their bases here. The future of our world depends on it." The response was immediate and overwhelming. As Cooper's strike team slipped out of the base under cover of darkness, the city erupted in a coordinated assault on Hirogen strongholds. Makeshift bombs detonated at alien checkpoints, snipers harassed patrols from hidden perches, and swarms of Resistance fighters engaged the enemy in running street battles. Amidst the chaos, Cooper and his team infiltrated the Hirogen shuttle bay. The alien facility was a marvel of advanced technology, all sleek lines and pulsing energy fields. They moved swiftly and silently, neutralizing guards with practiced efficiency. "There," Cooper whispered, pointing to a transport vessel. "That's our ticket up." They boarded the shuttle, and with a combination of Dr. Volkov's insights and sheer human ingenuity, managed to activate its systems. The vessel hummed to life, its alien controls responding to their touch. As they ascended through the atmosphere, the true scale of the orbital platform became apparent. It loomed above them, a massive structure of dark metal and glowing energy conduits. Cooper swallowed hard, knowing that the fate of humanity rested on their success. The team docked with the station, using stolen access codes to bypass the initial security protocols. As they disembarked, alarms began to blare. Their presence had been detected. "Move fast," Cooper ordered. "We need to reach the central control room." They fought their way through the station's winding corridors, facing increasingly fierce resistance. Hydrogen warriors, encased in formidable battle armor, converged on their position. The close quarters turned the battle into a brutal, hand-to-hand affair. Cooper's team suffered casualties, each loss a knife to his heart, but they pushed forward, driven by the knowledge of what was at stake. As they neared the control room, a new threat emerged. Commander Yaris himself, flanked by a contingent of elite guards, moved to intercept them. The Hirogen leader's eyes burned with fury as he recognized Cooper. "You," Yaris snarled, "the human who has cost us so much." Cooper raised his weapon, a modified pulse rifle. "It ends here, Yaris, one way or another." The two forces clashed in a frenzy of energy weapons and improvised explosives. Cooper's team fought with desperate intensity, knowing they were outmatched in terms of raw power. They used every trick and tactic they had developed over months of resistance, turning the station's environment against their foes. In a moment of desperation, Cooper made a calculated gamble. He detonated a breaching charge on the nearby hull, causing explosive decompression. The sudden rush of escaping air caught the Hirogen off guard, giving Cooper's team the opening they needed. They fought their way into the control room, the air rapidly thinning around them. Cooper's hands flew over the alien console, guided by countless hours of study and simulation. He inserted Dr. Volkov's virus into the system, watching with held breath as it began to spread. The effect was almost immediate. Lights flickered and died throughout the station. Weapon systems went offline. Communication arrays fell silent. The virus spread through the Hirogen network like wildfire, leaving their once mighty war machine crippled and vulnerable. As the scope of his defeat became clear, Yaris made a decision that would shock both his own forces and the humans. He opened a channel to Earth, his voice strained but clear. "Enough," he declared. "This conflict has gone too far. I call for an immediate ceasefire and the opening of peace negotiations." Cooper stared at the Hirogen commander in disbelief, his legs shaking from this unexpected turn of events. The war that had seemed endless just moments ago now stood on the brink of conclusion. But as the initial shock wore off, he realized that the path ahead was far from certain. On the planet below, reactions to Yaris's declaration were mixed. Some humans celebrated in the streets, while others viewed the offer with suspicion and hostility. The resistance forces, blooded by months of brutal combat, were divided on how to proceed. And among the Hirogen, a dangerous schism was forming. Krell, Yaris's ambitious second-in-command, saw the call for peace as a betrayal of everything their species stood for. He began to rally like-minded warriors, preparing to continue the fight even in defiance of their leader's orders. As Cooper and his team made their way back to Earth, the future hung in the balance. The war's momentum had shifted dramatically, but the coming days would determine whether this change would lead to lasting peace or an even more devastating conflict. The chess pieces were set for the next phase of the struggle, with the fate of both species hanging in the balance. Balance. The once imminent threat of annihilation had given way to an uncertain future, fraught with both peril and possibility. As the dust settled from the orbital confrontation, Earth's leaders wasted no time in responding to Yaris's call for peace. Within days, a delegation was assembled, comprising military strategists, diplomats, and key figures from the resistance. At its head stood Johnny Cooper, his face etched with the weariness of months of brutal conflict, yet his eyes burning with fierce grit. The journey to the repurposed Hirogen command ship was tense. As their shuttle approached the massive vessel hanging in a low Earth orbit, Cooper couldn't help but marvel at its alien design. Sleek, predatory lines spoke of a culture built on the hunt, while pulsing energy conduits hinted at technology far beyond human understanding. "Quite a sight, isn't it?" Dr. Elena Volkov murmured beside him, her eyes taking in every detail of the ship's exterior. Cooper nodded, his hand unconsciously tightening on the armrest. "Let's hope we're not walking into a trap." The docking procedure was smooth, almost anticlimactic given the circumstances. As the airlock cycled, Cooper took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. The doors hissed open, revealing a corridor lined with Hirogen warriors, their armor gleaming under the ship's harsh lighting. At the far end stood Commander Yaris, his posture rigid, mandibles twitching with scarcely controlled emotion. As Cooper approached, he saw something unexpected in the alien's eyes. Respect, tinged with a hint of uncertainty. "Cooper," Yaris rumbled, inclining his head slightly, "you fought well. I hope we can now work together with equal willpower." The human resistance leader returned the nod. "That's why we're here, Commander, to find a way forward that doesn't involve more bloodshed." As they made their way to the makeshift conference room, Cooper couldn't shake the feeling of unreality. Just days ago, he had been fighting for his life against these very aliens. Now he was walking among them as a potential ally. The negotiations were grueling. Hours stretched into days as both sides grappled with the monumental task of finding common ground between two radically different species. The humans demanded a complete withdrawal of Hirogen forces from Earth, their voices rising in passionate argument as they recounted the devastation wrought by the invasion. Yaris and his delegation pushed back, insisting on maintaining a presence on the planet. "We require resources," the Hirogen commander stated flatly. "Our expedition was not merely one of conquest. Our homeworld faces ecological collapse. Earth represents a lifeline for our species." Cooper leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "And what about our species, Yaris? How many humans died in your hunt for resources?" The tension in the room was palpable, the air thick with unspoken accusations and barely restrained hostility. It was clear that finding a solution would require more than just diplomatic platitudes. As the talks reached a critical impasse, Cooper found himself pacing the corridors of the Hirogen ship during a recess. His mind raced, searching for a way to break the deadlock. That's when the idea struck him. Returning to the conference room, Cooper laid out his proposal. "A compromise," he began, his voice steady. "We allow a limited Hirogen presence in designated areas under strict human oversight. You get your resources, but on our terms." The room erupted in a cacophony of voices, both human and Hirogen. Some saw it as a betrayal, others as a necessary step towards peace. Yaris remained silent, his alien features unreadable as he considered the proposal. Before a consensus could be reached, alarms blared throughout the ship. The conference room's view screen flared to life, showing chaos erupting across multiple decks. Hirogen warriors, their armor marked with unfamiliar insignia, were fighting their way towards the command center. "Krell!" Yaris snarled, his hand reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. "He moves against us." Cooper's combat instincts kicked in immediately. "We need to secure this room," he barked, already moving to barricade the entrance. "Yaris, any chance of loyal troops coming to our aid?" The Hirogen commander nodded grimly. "Some, but Krell has been planning this for some time. We are at a significant disadvantage." As the sounds of battle drew nearer, Cooper found himself in the surreal position of coordinating a defense alongside his former enemy. Human diplomats and Hirogen warriors worked side by side, transforming the conference room into a makeshift fortress. The attack, when it came, was ferocious. Krell's forces breached the outer defenses with brutal efficiency, their enhanced combat skills evident in every movement. Cooper and Yaris found themselves at the forefront of the defense, their contrasting fighting styles melding into an unexpectedly effective combination. As Cooper ducked beneath the swing of a Hirogen battle axe, he caught a glimpse of Yaris grappling with one of Krell's elite guards. The human resistance leader didn't hesitate. He launched himself at the attacker, his combat knife finding a weak point in the Hirogen's armor. Yaris nodded his thanks, the gesture speaking volumes in the heat of battle. Together they pushed back against the assault, buying precious time for the other delegates to reach the escape pods. As the fighting raged on the command ship, the situation on Earth was rapidly deteriorating. Major Sarah Chen, Cooper's second-in-command, received word of the coup through their emergency channels. Her response was swift and decisive. "All resistance cells, this is Major Chen," she broadcast on a secure frequency. "The peace talks are under attack. Krell's forces are moving against both humans and loyal Hirogen. Initiate Operation Thunderbolt. Across the globe, resistance fighters sprang into action. Years of guerrilla warfare had honed them into a formidable force, capable of striking hard and fast. They targeted Krell's ground installations with precision, using their intimate knowledge of Earth's terrain to outmaneuver the rebel Hirogen. But Chen knew that conventional tactics alone wouldn't be enough. That's where Dr. Volkov's research came into play. The scientist had made a breakthrough in understanding Hirogen biology, specifically their cybernetic enhancements. The key is electromagnetic disruption, Volkov explained, her eyes alight with the excitement of discovery. A properly calibrated EMP could disable their augmentations, leaving them vulnerable. Chen wasted no time in putting this knowledge to use. Makeshift EMP devices were rapidly assembled and distributed to resistance cells worldwide. The effect was devastating. Krell's forces, accustomed to relying on their technological superiority, found themselves suddenly stripped of their greatest advantage. In orbit, the battle for the command ship had reached a fever pitch. Cooper and Yaris, along with a handful of loyal Hirogen and human fighters, had been pushed back to the bridge. They fought with desperate intensity, knowing that the fate of both species hung in the balance. Suddenly, the ship rocked with a massive impact. Krell himself had arrived, leading a final assault on the bridge. The rebel leader cut an imposing figure, his armor adorned with trophies from countless hunts. "Yaris!" Krell roared, his voice dripping with contempt. "You disgrace our people by treating with these vermin. I will end this farce myself." What followed was a battle that would be etched into the annals of both human and Hirogen history. Cooper and Yaris, once mortal enemies, now fought back-to-back against Krell's onslaught. The bridge became a whirlwind of close-quarters combat, each side pushing themselves to the absolute limit. Cooper ducked under Krell's swinging fist, feeling the rush of air as it passed inches from his face. He countered with a swift kick to the Hirogen's knee, creating an opening for Yaris to land a crushing blow to Krell's midsection. But Krell was far from defeated. With a roar of rage, he activated hidden weapons in his armor, sending a barrage of energy blasts across the bridge. Cooper and Yaris were forced to dive for cover, separated by the onslaught. As Cooper rolled to his feet, he saw Krell looming over Yaris, energy blade poised for a killing strike. Without hesitation, Cooper hurled himself at the rebel leader, using every ounce of strength and skill he had acquired in months of desperate resistance. The impact sent both human and Hirogen crashing into a control console. Warning klaxons blared as systems overloaded. Cooper grappled with Krell, each trying to gain the upper hand. Yaris, recovering from the near-fatal attack, joined the fray. In a final, desperate move, Krell reached for the ship's self-destruct controls. "If I cannot have victory," he snarled, "then none shall." Cooper's eyes widened in horror as he saw the countdown begin. He exchanged a quick glance with Yaris, a moment of perfect understanding passing between them. Together they redoubled their efforts, fighting not just for themselves, but for the future of both their species. With a final Herculean effort, they overpowered Krell. The rebel leader fell, his armor sparking and systems failing, but the self-destruct sequence continued its relentless countdown. "We need to get off this ship," Cooper panted, already moving towards the nearest escape pod. Yaris nodded grimly. "Agreed, but this is not over, Cooper. There is much still to be decided." As they raced through the corridors of the dying ship, Cooper couldn't help but marvel at the strange turns his life had taken. Fighting alongside a Hirogen, fleeing from other Hirogen, all in the name of a peace he had never thought possible. They reached the escape pod with seconds to spare, launching themselves into the void of space just as the command ship erupted in a spectacular explosion. As the shockwave buffeted their small craft, Cooper watched the remnants of the ship burn up in Earth's atmosphere, a fiery testament to the day's events. Beside him, Yaris let out a long breath, his alien features set in an expression Cooper couldn't quite read. "It seems," the Hirogen commander said slowly, "that we have much to discuss." Cooper nodded, his mind already racing with the implications of what had transpired. The coup had been defeated, but at great cost. The path to peace, always narrow and treacherous, now seemed even more daunting. As their pod descended towards Earth, Cooper knew that the real work was just beginning. The wounds of war were still fresh, the mistrust between humans and Hirogen still deep. But for the first time since the invasion began, he felt a glimmer of genuine hope. The pod's communication system crackled to life, Major Chen's voice coming through filled with a mixture of relief and urgency. "Cooper, thank God you're alive. We've got Krell's forces on the run, but there's still heavy fighting in some sectors. And sir, the world is waiting to hear what happens next." Cooper exchanged a look with Yaris, seeing his own dedication mirrored in the Hirogen's eyes. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The future of both their species depended on it. As the pod entered Earth's atmosphere, streaking across the sky like a newborn star, Cooper allowed himself a moment of reflection. The war had changed everything, had changed him. But perhaps, just perhaps, those changes would lead to a future brighter than any he could have imagined in the dark days of the invasion. The ground rushed up to meet them, Earth welcoming back its defenders and its former invaders alike. A new chapter in human and Hirogen history was about to begin. The pod touched down with a jolt, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris. Cooper and Yaris emerged, blinking in the harsh sunlight. They were immediately surrounded by a mixture of human resistance fighters and loyal Hirogen warriors, all tense and battle-ready. Major Chen pushed through the crowd, her face etched with relief and concern. "Sir, we've secured most of Krell's forces, but there's still fighting in some areas. What are your orders?" Cooper exchanged a glance with Yaris before responding. "We need to end this quickly. Coordinate with Yaris's loyalists to round up the remaining rebels. But remember, we're aiming for containment, not annihilation." Yaris nodded in agreement. "My warriors will assist. We must present a united front if we are to salvage these peace talks." As the next days unfolded, Cooper and Yaris found themselves thrust into the center of a diplomatic maelstrom. The negotiation room, once a place of tense standoffs, now buzzed with a new energy. The shared experience of fighting side by side against Krell had shifted the dynamic between the two species. "We need more than just a ceasefire," Cooper argued, his voice firm but not combative. "We need a reason for our people to see each other as more than just former enemies." Yaris leaned forward, his alien features set in deep concentration. "What do you propose, Cooper?" Cooper took a deep breath, knowing his next words could shape the future of both species. "A joint venture, something that combines the best of both our peoples. What if we explored space together?" The room fell silent, the idea hanging in the air like a tangible thing. Then, slowly, voices began to rise, a mixture of excitement and skepticism filling the chamber. Dr. Elena Volkov, who had been quietly observing from the corner, spoke up. "It's not just possible, it's brilliant. The Hirogen have technology we've only dreamed of, and we humans have a drive for exploration that's unmatched. Together, we could reach further into the cosmos than either of us could alone." The discussions that followed were intense, stretching long into the night. But as the sun rose on a new day, a framework began to take shape. They called it the Horizon Initiative, a bold plan to combine human ingenuity with Hirogen technology in a joint space exploration program. As news of the initiative spread, it captured the imagination of both species. Humans, long accustomed to seeing the Hirogen as invaders, began to view them in a new light. The Hirogen, for their part, found themselves intrigued by the human spirit of adventure. The peace agreement that emerged from these talks was comprehensive. The Hirogen agreed to withdraw the majority of their forces from Earth, maintaining only a small presence in designated areas for cultural exchange and technological cooperation. In return, humans offered to share their vast cultural heritage and assist the Hirogen in developing a more diverse, less militaristic society. Cooper stood on a hilltop, watching as the first wave of Hirogen ships rose into the sky. Beside him, Yaris observed the carefully choreographed departure. "It is strange," the Hirogen commander mused, "to leave a world we fought so hard to claim. Yet I feel we are gaining something far more valuable." Cooper nodded, understanding the complex emotions at play. "This is just the beginning, Yaris. We have a lot of work ahead of us." And work they did. In the months that followed, the landscape of Earth began to change. Human and Hirogen engineering teams worked side by side, repairing the damage caused by the invasion and subsequent war. The sight of the two species collaborating became increasingly common in cities around the world. Dr. Volkov found herself at the forefront of this new era of cooperation. She led a team of human and Hirogen scientists in establishing a cutting-edge research facility. Their first major project involved adapting Hirogen cybernetic enhancements for human medical use. Imagine, she explained to a rapt audience of human and Hirogen medical professionals, treatment for spinal cord injuries, advanced prosthetics that respond to neural impulses, even ways to enhance human longevity. The possibilities are endless. 6 months after the peace agreement, the day of the Horizon Initiative's first launch arrived. A ship, its sleek design a fusion of human and Hirogen aesthetics, stood ready on the launch pad. Cooper and Yaris, as joint commanders of this historic mission, performed one last systems check. "All systems are go," Cooper reported, a hint of excitement breaking through his professional demeanor. Yaris nodded, his own anticipation evident. "Then let us make history, my friend." As the ship rose into the sky, cheers erupted from the crowds gathered to watch. Humans and Hirogen alike felt a surge of pride and hope as the vessel disappeared into the blue expanse, bound for a nearby star system. On the ground, the work of integration continued. Major Sarah Chen, once a fierce resistance fighter, now found herself serving as a cultural liaison. She worked tirelessly to bridge the gap between humans and the remaining Hirogen population, organizing cultural exchanges and educational programs. "It's not always easy," she admitted during a joint Human-Hirogen Council meeting. "There's still fear and mistrust on both sides, but every day I see progress. I see children from both species playing together, adults engaging in genuine dialogue. We're building something remarkable here." As the one-year anniversary of the invasion approached, preparations began for a ceremony to commemorate both the war's end and the new alliance. At the center of the event would be a memorial dedicated to all who had lost their lives in the conflict. Cooper stood before the monument, a striking sculpture that incorporated elements of both human and Hirogen design. His fingers traced the name of the human child, whose death had been a turning point in the war. The memory was still painful, but it now served as a powerful reminder of why their newfound peace was so precious. The ceremony itself was a powerful affair. Cooper, standing before a diverse crowd of humans and Hirogen, delivered a speech that moved many to tears. "A year ago, we stood on opposite sides of a battlefield," he began, his voice carrying across the hushed audience. "Today, we stand together as allies, as friends, as fellow explorers of the cosmos. We have proven that even in the darkest of times, hope and unity can prevail." As Cooper spoke, the camera panned to show Yaris nodding in agreement, their former enmity replaced by mutual respect and shared purpose. The ceremony concluded with the unveiling of a new flag, its design a harmonious blend of human and Hirogen elements. As the flag rose, fluttering in the breeze, cheers erupted from the crowd. The camera pulled back, revealing the ceremony taking place in a rebuilt New York City. The skyline was a testament to their new alliance, with signs of both human and Hirogen architecture blending seamlessly. In a nearby park, a group of human and Hirogen children played together, their laughter carrying on the wind. It was a scene that would have been unimaginable just a year ago, yet now it represented the new normal. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the city, Cooper and Yaris stood side by side, gazing out at the horizon. "What do you think we'll find out there, Cooper?" Yaris asked, his eyes fixed on the darkening sky. Cooper smiled, a sense of anticipation filling him. "I don't know, Yaris, but I can't wait to find out. Together."
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.